So what if I told you that one of the oldest texts in the world, Genesis chapter 10, isn't just a long, boring list of strange-sounding names? What if it's actually something way more interesting, like a map, an ancient attempt to chart the entire known world and explain how every single person fits into the picture?
You know, the text kicks off with this massive question. If you start from the premise that the whole world was wiped out by a flood, and you've only got one family left, well, how do you get from that one family to the huge, diverse mix of nations we see all over the ancient world? It's a pretty big puzzle to solve.
And right there, that's the text's own answer. It's basically the thesis statement for the whole chapter. It's claiming that what you're about to read is the master key, the complete family tree that explains where every clan, every nation, and every language group known to the writers actually came from.
Okay, so how does this ancient map even work? Well, first we're going to look at the basic structure. Then we'll follow the three main branches of humanity laid out in the text. That's Japheth, Ham, and Shem. And finally, we'll pull it all together to see the incredible big picture they were painting. So the whole thing, the entire map, it all starts with just three guys. Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. In this ancient worldview, they are the three main branches that all of humanity grows from. According to this text, everyone on Earth can trace their family line right back to one of these three.
All right, let's start with the first branch, Japheth. His descendants are pretty much understood to be the peoples who went on to settle the regions north and west of ancient Israel. So think of the coastlands of the Mediterranean, the areas around the Black Sea. That's Japheth's territory.
Now, when you see these names, you got to remember, they're not just names on a page. For an ancient reader, each one of these represented an entire people group. They were like the foundational anchors for the northern part of their world. For instance, Javan is often connected with the early Greeks, and Madai, that's linked to the Medes, who were a major power back in the day.
And if we go one generation deeper to the grandsons, the map starts to get even more specific. Tarshish, for example, is often linked with seafaring peoples in the far, far west, maybe even as far as Spain. The Kittites, they're associated with Cyprus, and the Rhodanites with the island of Rhodes. You can literally see the map filling in all along the coastlines. And here's what's really key. The text itself gives them a collective identity, the maritime peoples. This shows us it's more than just a family tree. It's a cultural map. Japheth's line is defined by the sea. These are the explorers, the traders, the island dwellers of this ancient world. Okay, now let's head south to the second son, Ham. And this branch is a huge deal because it represents the great powers of the ancient world, all the way from Africa to the Near East. We are talking about the planet's very first empires.
Ham's four sons basically represent four major territories and nations. You've got Cush, which is the region south of Egypt, often identified as Nubia or Ethiopia. Put is linked to Libya. Egypt is, well, Egypt. And Canaan, of course, becomes the central piece of land in later biblical history. This branch populates the absolute power centers of the south.
But right in the middle of Ham's line, one person gets a special spotlight: Nimrod. He's a grandson of Ham, and he's the first person in this entire chapter to be described with a real personality and a reputation. He's not just a name in a list, he's a mighty warrior, a legendary figure whose fame was so big it got captured in a popular saying.
And his story shows us exactly why he's so important. The text gives us this little mini biography of an empire builder. He starts out in southern Mesopotamia, founding these iconic cities like Babylon. But then his ambition drives him north to build the great Assyrian capital, Nineveh. On this map, he's the original king, the archetype.
And it doesn't stop with Nimrod. The line of Ham also includes so many other famous groups. From Egypt, you get the ancestors of the Philistines. And from Canaan, you get the Hittites, the Amorites, and all the other clans that were living in the land before the Israelites showed up. This branch really populates the political heartland of the ancient world.
All right, on to our final branch, the descendants of Shem. His name actually gives us the word Semite, and his lineage populates the lands to the east, places like Mesopotamia and the Arabian Peninsula. But this line gets some special attention because it leads to a very, very important figure. So the text does something really specific here. It traces a direct line from Shem down 4 generations to a man named Eber. The author even points out that Shem was the ancestor of all the sons of Eber. That's like a big flashing sign saying, pay attention, this guy Eber is a pivotal point in the genealogy. He's the ancestor from whom the Hebrews would eventually get their name.
Okay, and this is where it gets really fascinating. Take a look at Eber's two sons. Yoktan goes on to father a whole bunch of tribes in southern Arabia. But his brother Peleg has this incredibly cryptic note attached to his name. His name means division, because, as the text says, in his time the earth was divided. What on earth does that mean? It's a deliberate cliffhanger, pointing us forward to the next story, the Tower of Babel.
So we've traced these three massive family branches all across the globe. Let's zoom out. What does this complete map, this table of nations, actually show us about the world? What's the big idea?
So here it is, the whole thing in one simple table. It's this beautiful, neat, three-part division of the known world. Japheth covers the coasts to the north and west. Ham covers the great empires to the south, and Shem covers the tribes to the east. It's a remarkably organized and structured view of global geography. So the most important point here is that this chapter is so much more than a list of names. It's a profound statement. It argues for the fundamental unity of all people, that everyone comes from one family. And it's trying to explain the world's amazing diversity, not as random chaos, but as part of an organized, divinely ordered plan where every single people group has its own legitimate place in the world.
And the chapter wraps up by basically saying just that. It's a summary of the whole project, a systematic catalog of humanity, all organized by clan, by lineage, and by nation. It's a declaration of order in a complex and sometimes chaotic world.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? This ancient text was this monumental effort to map humanity and find a place for everyone. And now, thousands of years later, in a world that feels infinitely more complicated, we're still trying to do the same thing through our genetics, our languages, our cultures. It really makes you wonder, how do our modern maps of human connection stack up against this very first, very ambitious attempt?